Hi everyone, it's Amy from Click Roll Boom, and today I get to have a bit of a fangirl moment as I chat to the legend that is CJ Wildheart. So, if we imagine whoever's watching this has lived under a rock for the last 3 decades, who is CJ Wildheart?
Um, that's a really hard one trying to describe yourself. I see myself as a punk rocker fundamentally. My heart is punk, but I'm a metaler as well, and I'm a heavy rocker. There's a bit of goth in me as well, but I'm a punk rocker. I broke out in the rock scene when I was about 18, which was about 38 years ago. I'm 56 now. And I've made many, many albums, and most people will remember me from the jazz combo, the Wildhearts.
So, over the years, you mentioned that your sound has sort of influenced from a lot of places. It's sort of bounced around from indie to rock and roll to punk. Which one would you say is your truest form?
Punk, all the way. Yeah, I mean, you know, to my main band, the Wildhearts, Ginger was always the glam rocker in the band. He was always the one who wanted to be Paul Stanley. I just wanted to be Mick Jones from the Clash. And when I hear his southern accent and the way he sings, it kind of sings to me because I am from the South. So yeah.
So over the years, you have been involved in a lot of different side projects. Which one has been your favourite, and which one would you most like to reform?
Honeycrack, without a doubt, because there's two reasons. Honeycrack, I was sacked from the Wildhearts in 1994, and Honeycrack was the band that came out of the ashes of me being sacked, and musically, it's the greatest. It's the most musical band I've ever been in. Those guys. I mean, like incredible singers, incredible songwriters, incredible musicians, and I learned in the 2 years we were together. I learned more in those 2 years working with those guys than I've learned from anybody. And it wasn't long enough. The band always felt
No,
like it ended too soon. And that's the
definitely.
one band I would love to go back to. But Willie, who was a singer in the band, I can't imagine him ever wanting to go back to that. So,
No, no,
yeah.
sitting at home is still on my heavy rotation, even all these years later.
Yeah.
Fantastic song.
It's really, I love it. I mean, I play that song. I'm going out with my solo band in April, and that's part of our set. So
Is it?
yes.
Fantastic.
Um,
To be fair, I was listening to the Jellies. They were good fun.
yeah, it was a pop punk band, but I mean, that band exhausted all avenues, and
Yeah,
it's really nice when you feel like a band has a beginning and a definite
yeah,
end.
yeah,
When there's no loose ends to tie up, it's a
yeah,
really good feeling. You've tried your hardest, you've had some fun, you made a few albums, you got to tour a lot, and you look back at it and you feel, it feels good,
yeah,
and
definitely.
this flogging a dead horse is no offense to the Wild Hearts, but that could be the name of our book or movie, because we flogged that dead horse many, many,
Yeah, I
many,
can think
many,
of a lot
many,
of
many
bands.
times.
I can think of a lot of bands from that era that have done the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's yeah, it's sometimes it's the coolest thing is just to stop
Absolutely,
and move on to something else. That's the
absolutely.
really cool thing to
Yeah,
do. You don't appear desperate. You don't appear like you're out for a money grab. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, once the passion's gone in that particular project, it's time to find a new project.
I think everything has a natural ending,
Mhm.
and
Definitely.
so smart people will listen
Yeah.
and look to see where that ending is. And yeah, mm. Maybe we're all dumbasses. Who knows?
Maybe. So you've just put out your fourth album, Split. What was the inspiration behind it and the story?
My fourth, is that my fourth solo? It's my seventh, I think.
Is
Six,
it?
six solo album. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
13, Mabel, Robot, Blood, Siege, and then I had the best of album, then the live album, and then Split, number 8.
oh, okay. Yeah, I was only counting because I wasn't counting the live. When I was counting them up on
Yeah,
Wiki, I wasn't
I
counting
don't
the.
uh albums now. When I was a young man, I remember when my first album when it came out, it was like holding the Holy Grail,
Yeah,
because you've made an
yeah,
album, and and it was just it was amazing. But music, like when I make albums now, it's just a relief
Yeah.
that I've lasted another, rotation around the world, to get to this point.
Yeah.
It's but Split, I was about to give up, if I was honest with you. And Split has stopped me from giving up for at least another year or two. Who knows? Maybe another 10 years. I don't know. But I was about to walk away. Just frustration more than anything. It's like you work so hard on a band, and then it just all goes wrong again. You
Yeah.
can't help, a normal person's going to feel frustrated by that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So Split brought me back in to the
But it's
music game.
interesting because Split is in itself is such a positive record.
Yes, but rebirth and coming back,
Yeah.
not giving up on something's quite
Yeah.
positive, isn't it?
Well, definitely
Yeah.
true.
It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, the choice was, do you want ketchup on your fries, or do I make another album? You see, my CV has a lot of holes in it. Yeah.
A story behind the songs on there, or were they just a collection that you'd already got written and then put together for that album? Or
No, I write for the album, and those songs were written as I was recording the album.
yeah,
I'm not one of those songwriters who has a songbook with 100 songs in it. Um, I have to write about what I'm experiencing or what I've experienced
yeah,
in relatively recent history. I'm
yeah.
not going to write about a battle that happened in 1856 because I wasn't there.
No.
So, and I'm not going to write about nothing, no offense, wizards and goblins, because I've
No.
never seen any. I've never met any. I met a few people who think they're wizards, but they're not.
So are all your songs always real life? It's never a
Always.
fictitious account of anything.
No, it's always about what I'm going through, or what I've seen people go through, about what I love, or what I don't like. I think especially with punk, you kind of like I'm not talking about like the sound, I'm talking about the passion. It kind of has to be real, doesn't it? It has
It's
to be.
definite punk passion.
Yeah, yeah.
Definite.
You got to keep your feet on the ground.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. So this might be a sensitive one. What led to your most recent departure from the Wild Hearts, and do you think that's your final farewell to the band?
um yeah, I think a lot of people, the question they got to ask is why none of the Wild Hearts are working with Ginger. None of us are.
Yes. Yeah.
And in his defense, he asked Richie and he asked me, but he didn't really ask me because he sent it to an email that I haven't used for quite a few years now. And but I only found out via Richie that it sent me this email.
Yeah.
So I said to Richie, well, just you reply to him, I'm not going back. And
Yeah.
we won't work with Ginger anymore. And there's lots of reasons,
Yeah.
but I said earlier on that you put a lot of work into something and it goes wrong
Yeah.
again. And the smart person will see, it's reached a natural end. Me and Ginger started the band in 1989. That's
Yeah.
35 years ago.
Yeah.
If you're still, after 35 years, you're still trying to flog a flea market, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're not in mansions and driving like, Aston Martins after 35
Yeah.
years, don't think it's going to happen. We're all closer. The real Wild Arts are all closer to 60. And I
Yeah.
say the real Wild Arts because Ginger's put a band together. They're great players, but it's not the Wild Arts.
No.
It's some low rent. I mean, those guys are cheap. They're
Yeah.
not as expensive as having like me on board or Richie on board. And no offense to them, they're all great players, but it's not the
Yeah.
Wild Arts. The Wild
Yeah.
Arts have DNA. And me and Richie, we're closer to 60 than we are 50 now, and we just can't go through that again. It's like
No.
it comes a point where, I've got a young son. I'm about to get married next month. I just don't want the drama,
Yeah.
And rock and roll is a young person's game as well. There's nothing sadder than seeing a bunch of old men who think they're rock and roll. It's
Yeah.
1990,
I suppose you look at other bands from that sort of era, the likes of Therapy or Terrorvision, who are still going, who probably aren't that much bigger than the Wild Hearts, but they
Yeah,
seem
they
to have
do
all
better
had,
business. So
they all seem to
let's
have
not.
a
Yeah.
lot less politics within their bands.
I mean, you got no offense, right? Okay, Therapy are going on a world tour. Okay,
Yeah.
the Wild Hearts, our world tour will literally start in Glasgow and end in Milton Keynes. Terrorvision always play smart. They never overplay the market. They haven't released an album in about 100 years. So
No.
whenever they do shows, they always sell out.
Yeah.
And whereas the Wildhearts of, for a long time now, we've been a going concern and we've been trying to rejuvenate our careers and try it, and the closest we got to it was, you know, the last album. I forgot what it's called, but it went to like number 9, didn't it, in the
Yes.
chart? And that's really good for a
Yeah.
bunch of old fucks like us to get to number 9 in the
Yeah.
charts. And I think that's something that should have been celebrated, and it wasn't. And
Definitely.
I think that's a real shame on the band.
Mm.
We should have celebrated the fact that we got top
Yeah.
10, and it
Yeah.
was
Definitely.
still with that band. Problems aside, it was still the Wildhearts,
Yeah.
myself, Richie, Ginger, and Danny.
Yeah.
And that was something that should have been really celebrated, but
Definitely, because the
it
charts
caused
have
it.
changed. They're
Hmm?
changing so much. The type of music that's making the charts now is changing so much. It's all very commercial. It's all very pop based. So for an alt rock band to get into the top 10 is big news.
It is big news, but saying that, I take my hat off to. There's a lot of younger bands, bands who have supported us, the Wildhearts, like Massive Wagons and those Damn Crows. They're doing really well now, and they deserve it. And
Yeah.
they're the bands that should be doing really well. We had our chance back in the 90s, back into the noughties,
Yeah.
4 years ago. We've blown them all. We don't
Yeah.
deserve it. They deserve it. They're working
Yeah.
really hard. They're playing the game. Yeah.
Definitely. Have you ever thought about dropping Wildheart from your stage name and just playing
Many,
under
many,
your name?
many times, and it's not to do with me being a member of the band. It's just it's more to do with what the name. A lot of people, when they hear the name Wildheart, they don't think about musicians. They think
Mm.
about junkies and drunks and people who fuck up all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a real shame, because I've never been a drunk. I've never been a
Yeah.
junkie. I fucked up a few times, but like anyone growing up,
We
you
all.
fuck up.
Mm.
Yes, but y- you know sometimes we're seen as a bit of a joke, and we have
Mm.
such a small fan base. Most people don't know who the Wildhearts are, but
Yeah.
in the business outside of our little fan base, we're kind of seen as a bit of a joke, and it's a joke we've added fuel to, over the years, and it's a real shame, because we made a few really, really good albums, and on a good day, we were a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Really were. Mm.
Definitely. So you've just announced a series of live dates for April. What can people expect from your live shows?
Well, no stripping, for starters. Those days are gone. I'm sorry to all my fan out there. They're gone. They're gone.
Oh, okay.
Could you imagine it? Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's a stuff of nightmares. Um, no offense to my band. I mean, they're lovely looking lads and that, but yeah, definitely they can keep their coats, their hats, and everything on. It'll be. I've got a new band. The guitar player who, funny enough, who was playing with me, he's jumped ship and joined the Wildhearts. So Ben, yeah,
Yeah.
he's actually taken my job in the Wildhearts. So
Right.
he's actually in the process now of being browned up and having his turban fitted, so he can actually look like an Indian punk rocker. Good riddance. But I have a new guitarist. I've got same drummer, same bass player. Lee Ray's been my bass player since about a long time now. So I've had a few lineups solo band, because I don't tour regularly. Every time I do a tour, I've got a different band with me. It's not because I smell and I'm horrible. It's just that musicians go off and do
Yeah.
other things. So, but it'll be punk rock, and it'll be songs from my career, basically.
Yeah.
A few Wildheart stuff, a couple of Jelly stuff, some Honey Crack stuff, a lot of solo stuff, and it's always good. It's always up. I haven't had many meltdowns on stage and tantrums and stuff, and I'm not really known for doing that. But it'll be good.
Do you have any pre-show rituals?
No, not really. I mean, I
No?
used to back in the old days. Yeah, used to sniff a lot. I remember when we were younger. Hay fever. I guess.
Oh, okay. What's been your favorite experience playing live?
Favorite experience. You know what? The thing I miss most about when you're at a certain level in any band, it doesn't matter what type of music it is. When you get to a certain level, you tour on tour buses, you stay in nice hotels, you're playing all over the world, you have a full crew with you, and that lifestyle is priceless. It's like it's unbelievable. It's and that's what I miss. I miss
Yeah.
being on the road and traveling around the world and meeting people. You know, I'm going out to do club shows. One of the reasons why I don't play much is because I don't want to. I'm almost 60. I don't want to be playing really
No.
small venues.
No.
Like I don't. I'm always checking myself, and there's nothing sadder than seeing old musicians who used to be on TV, used to be on Radio One, used to do big shows,
Mm.
playing in front of 50 people
Yeah.
in Digbirth on a Thursday night, thinking they're a Bee Gee. It's
Mm.
awful, and
Yeah.
I've never thought of myself as a Bee Gee, you know. And so when I do go out and do solo shows, I leave. You know, it's been 2 years since I last played some
Yeah.
solo shows. Before that, it was 5 years. I
Wow.
leave a big enough gap
Yeah.
so that, you know, at least it's going to mean something to me,
Yeah.
and it's going to mean something to the people turning up. And I'm
Yeah.
not just
Definitely.
doing it for fish and chip money, you know.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, I think
passion.
you can see sometimes with bands when they do just extensively tour constantly, they do get to the point where they're going through the motions and it becomes quite obvious that they're going through the motions.
I mean, it's not about. A lot of it is like older musicians. Like, right, if I was desperate for money, I'd get a job. I wouldn't go out and do acoustic shows.
No.
It's a trick old has-beens do. They'll go
Yeah.
out and do their acoustic show because they've got no band, there's no expenses. They'll turn up, they'll earn like £600, 700,
Yeah.
just play. I just, if it isn't with a band, if it isn't full on,
Yeah.
then I just don't see the point in doing it. And I'm old enough to get a job at home base now or being kid. So, you know,
Yeah.
I will do that.
So what's the strangest thing a fan has ever asked you?
God, the list is endless. Uh, when you're in a band like the Wildhearts, I mean, especially, I mean, we were like, no offense, we were like party animals back in the day, and we were all bad boys. You know, there
Yeah.
wasn't one member. It was one of the reasons why the Wildhearts were destined to fail
Yeah.
because we were all fucking bastards back in the day.
Yeah.
We were horrible, horrible people, but some of us grew up, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, I haven't touched drugs in 16, 17 years, you
Wow.
know, and I didn't drink for a long time. Occasionally I'll have a glass of wine or a beer,
Yeah.
but I haven't had a hangover in years now. And it's like you grow up, but when you're a party band, you attract the weirdest people. So there isn't much that hasn't been offered to me, asked
Mm.
of me, you know, done to me. And you
You're
know,
quite
you
big in
use your
Japan as
imagination.
well.
Hmm?
The Wild Hearts were quite big in Japan, weren't they? So I
We
imagine that's
were.
quite crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we were quite, I mean, all my bands have toured Japan,
Yeah.
and I'm hopefully my solo band's going over there this year as well to play.
Okay.
Um, so it's Japan was our main market for a while,
Yeah.
and it's the problem with Japan is the fans get older and they stop going to shows, and we lost our record deal out there as
Oh,
well, and
yeah.
well, Ginger hit the head of the label. So it doesn't really you know
That's not
bode well
good.
for keeping a record.
That's not good.
So
Can't do that.
it's taken me a few years to go like paper over the cracks and stuff. But I'm about to hopefully sign another deal out there
Yeah.
and tour there this year. But I mean, Japan was all of ours like favorite country. We love it, absolutely love
Yeah.
it out there. I mean, it's such a if there's one country, oh, well, America and Japan. Those two, tour in America, tour in Japan. It's just, especially if you're a rock or a punk band or a guitar band, it's just they're like, it's just brilliant. It's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. You can't anyone who tours America or tours Japan, anyone who tours full stop and starts moaning about it needs to fuck off. They
Yeah.
really do. They need
Yeah.
to slap themselves and realize how lucky they are to be in
Yeah.
that position.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's a privilege. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a curse.
Actually, one question I missed earlier is when we were talking about Split. How does it differ from your previous records?
Um, I think on Split I've ripped off the Clash more than I ever have. You know, and there's definitely there's a retro punk rock vibe to it, especially the opening song "Kick Down the Walls," which is it's actually about the early days of the Wild Hearts and or any band when before the rock sets in and you feel like a gang and you feel like you could take on the world and you know someone starts on one member, the rest of you are going to be there. They've got your back. And, you know, intentionally, or, you know, I wanted to kind of reference the Clash. And
Yeah.
if I was going to pick one English band to reference and to try and emulate, it would be any song of the first three Clash albums. You know, but Split is definitely a nod there, and it's, I definitely want to stay punk now. If
Yeah.
if I'm gonna carry on, a lot of older artists get a bit mellower, don't they? And they kind of
Yeah.
soften as
Definitely.
their bones start aching. And I just don't want to do that. I want
Yeah.
to get heavier, and I have the potential to be. I could be heavy metal if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I won't. I'm just going to be more punk. I won't be accepted by most punks because I was in the Wildhearts and we were
Yeah.
never a punk band. We're always
No.
seen as a rock band,
Mhm.
and you know, rock and roll, and
Yeah.
you know, rock and roll punk. It's like a different thing, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, you kind of got lumped into that Brit rock category, the Wildhearts, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's like it's odd because people who hear my solo stuff for the first time are expecting it to sound like the Wild Arts, and the
Mm.
first thing they always say, and the resounding thing is, it's really punk. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting it to be so punk, and I go, well, that's where my heart is. But
Yeah.
it's like the punks don't like me. They think I'm like Nikki Sixx or something. Yeah, I think I'm like Motley Crue, yeah, rock and roll.
So now the new album's out, and once your tour's done, are you taking a break or are you straight on to the next project?
I'm working. I tell you what I'm doing right. End of next week, I'm releasing the demos for Split because I
Mhm.
work on my own. I have my own
Okay.
setup, and I
Yeah.
basically record the albums on my own, then go to a studio, replace the drum machine parts with a drummer, and then I mix it with my mixing friend Dave Draper.
Yeah.
So Split was recorded all on my own. In my on my studio, like all my solo albums, I record on my own. So I'm releasing those demos plus the three songs that didn't make it onto the album.
Okay. Yeah.
So the demo version of the album is 14 songs instead of
Yeah.
11. There's a cover on there. I don't know if you know Block Party.
Yeah.
I did a cover of their song Helicopter.
Okay.
That was the very, very first song I recorded for Split. And the reason why I did a cover was just I had a bit of time off between albums and I just wanted to get back into the recording process. So
Mhm.
I thought I'd do a cover. And so
Yeah.
that's on there. And the original opening song is going to start the album as well, which is called Fire the Battery. So I'm releasing that on Friday next
Yeah.
week, the demo version of Split.
Brilliant.
And then I crack on with the next album, which is called 1980.
Oh, you've got a name for it already.
Yeah. I've got
Oh,
songs for it. I just haven't recorded them.
wow.
So, and that'll come out hopefully September. But
Mhm.
1980 was the year I saw my first ever band and decided I wanted to play in it, be a guitarist and a
Yeah.
singer. Hence the name 1980. Unfortunately, it's not the year I was born. So.
And lastly, so you've got over 30 years of experience, and there must have been times where through those years you've thought, this is hopeless, I want to give up. What advice would you give to new bands starting out who are at that point? What would you say to them to keep them pushing forwards?
So, right, the only reason why I haven't given up completely is I can still bring home some bacon. You know, I can still make some dough from this. And if I couldn't make any dough, I couldn't do it.
No.
This hasn't been a hobby for me since I was a teenager. It's
Yeah.
been my job. It's been my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And so I don't go out and do a gig and don't get paid. If I'm not going to get paid, I'm not playing. And the
Fair
reason
enough.
why is it's my job. And it's
Yeah.
been my job since I signed my first record deal when I was 18. And I'm 56 now. And every time I've played, I normally get paid for it. So, you know, and when I release albums, I don't release albums because it's some sort of weird hobby or fetish of me.
Mm.
I release albums to pay my bills, to pay my
Yeah.
mortgage, to feed my son.
Yeah.
Um, if you're not making money from music, there's no shame in saying I'm not making music, get a job. You know,
Yeah.
you haven't failed. It's really
Yeah.
hard for any artist, it doesn't matter, not just music, anyone who works in the arts to actually make a living from this
Yeah.
now. And it's getting harder. I when I hit 40, I got a day job for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
And I was like my first proper day jobs since
Wow.
I'd been a teenager.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how fortunate I was. I spent 2 years out of music, and it made me realize how fortunate I was to be able to make money
Yeah.
by playing the guitar and singing.
Yeah.
So
I
if
suppose
you're
it's
fortunate
easier
enough
not
to
to
get there, You know,
suppose
but
it's really not-
I know a lot of musicians who take it for granted, and they need a slap. You know.
Yeah. I suppose it's much easier not to give up when you are making money from it. When you're spending money out and you feel like all you're doing is spending money out, I suppose it's harder to not think I can't
Well,
carry on like this.
if you have the safety net of having a job anyway,
Yeah.
then you know, spend some of your hard-earned money on the music thing, and then hopefully one day it will all come together, and then you go off and, you know, have hits and tour the world. But you it's you can't, I mean, you can't. If my son woke up and says, I want to be a guitarist and play in a band when
Mm,
he left school, I say, no, no way. It
yeah.
ain't happening. You can't just decide you want to do that. You know, you need an education. You need, you know, if I could go back, I'd go to university. But,
Yeah.
you know, look, I signed deals when I was really young,
Yeah.
and we had money was thrown at us. By the time I
Mm,
was 30, I already had £2 million invested in my two bands
yeah.
by two of the biggest record labels in the world.
Yeah.
Those sort of deals don't come around anymore,
Do
you
you
know.
think the music industry is harder to break now because of how people consume music?
Um, I think it's changed so much that it's harder for people of my age to kind of understand that you know, there's people who don't play gigs and they're earning
Mm,
fortunes through
yeah.
social media. That was never around when the only way we could earn money is by touring.
Yeah.
And you know, or you sign a big record deal and you get on a wage, you know. But you know, we made money, lots of money, through selling t-shirts.
Yeah.
And but now there's so many different ways a musician, if you're good, you don't need a big record deal anymore. And younger musicians, like I've made the last 7 solo albums myself at home,
Yeah.
you know. Young musicians know that, all that stuff now, and they're taught
Yeah.
all that stuff, and they have that ability. If you can write a great song, you can get it out there. People will listen to it, you know, and you will get some momentum. But it's
Go
definitely a
viral.
young person's game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. All right, Brent, that's been great talking to you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
I hope you
Bye.
can put it all together so it all makes sense.
Sorry.
I hope you can put it all together so it all makes sense.
I leave that to the editor. I give him the video and he sorts the editing out. I can't do it. I can do the talking. He has to do the technical.
Brilliant.
I
Are,
can't.
are, are you going to come to any of these solo shows? I don't know if we're playing
You're
near
not
you.
playing Norwich, are you?
We're not. I'm thinking of going out again in September, so we'll probably head down to Norwich
Yeah,
in
if you come to
September.
Norwich or like Ipswich, Cambridge, I'll come out to one of those.
Okay, brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. All right. Well, thank you
Right.
very much, Amy.
Cheers. Bye.
You take care. Bye bye.
And